Some people use a combination of regular insulin and NPH insulin. As you recall from the introduction, regular insulin is a short-acting insulin. It is actually pretty much the same type of insulin that your body makes. So it's going to be short-acting. It's going to have an early peak. So the insulin's going to get in your body. It's going to do its thing, and then it's going to go away relatively quickly. For all intents and purposes, gone within about 2 to 3 hours. Now, that's as opposed to NPH insulin. Even if when you're taking NPH and regular at the same time, the NPH component is going to have a slower onset. It's going to peak later in the day and then go away more gradually. Now, using a combination of regular and NPH, you can actually mix those two insulins in the same syringe, so you're not having to get 2 sticks whenever you take those insulins. They can be mixed in the same syringe. Now, when we're using this regimen, we are generally taking it twice a day, in the morning around breakfast, and then again at around your evening meal. And so again, remember, you have 2 different insulins when you're using the combination of NPH and regular. So you're going to have 2 peaks. You're going to have an early peak from the regular, and then you're going to have a later peak from the NPH. And we are taking it twice a day. So again, we're taking insulin in the morning. We have an early peak from the regular. We have a later peak from the NPH, and then we're taking it in the evening. And again, we have an early peak from the regular and a later peak from the NPH. So the way to think of this is that your morning regular is controlling your blood sugars prior to lunch. So you can use your preprandial blood sugars that you check before lunch in order to determine whether you're on an appropriate dose of morning time regular. Your morning time NPH is controlling your blood sugars prior to dinner time. So again, you can use that preprandial blood sugar that you check prior to dinner in order to determine whether you're on an appropriate dose of your morning NPH. Now, for your evening regular, that is controlling your blood sugars at around bedtime. So you use that blood sugar to determine whether you are on an appropriate dose of evening regular. And your evening NPH is controlling your fasting blood sugar. So that's your blood sugar the next morning. So you use your fasting blood sugar in order to determine whether you are on an appropriate dose of evening NPH. So you got to get that straight in your mind so that you'll know how to make appropriate adjustments to your various insulins. Now, this regimen, it's an older regimen. Regular insulin and NPH have been around for a long time, but it works. It works just fine, and it's also cheap. So if you're having to pay out of pocket for your insulin, it may make sense to be on these older insulins. And as I've already mentioned, you can mix those insulins in the same syringe, which is not the case with the other insulins. And again, it is much cheaper. Now, one of the things you have to be careful about when using the combination of NPH and regular is, remember, with the NPH, it's got this peak later in the day from when you actually took the insulin. And so you can't skip meals. You got to be fairly regimented about your meal times and the carbohydrate content of those meals when you're doing this. So if you're ever sick and not able to eat, what I would recommend you do is just half your doses. If you're a type 2 diabetic, you might even consider just not taking it on a scheduled basis at all and just doing a sliding scale. But at the very least, I would cut the doses in half, and you just have to monitor your blood sugars and see how your body responds. Sometimes when people are ill, you have a cortisol release, which may actually run your blood sugar up. And so you might not need to make any adjustments at all. Everybody's body is different. You just have to figure out how your body reacts. But it's just very important that you pay attention to what you're doing, and you just have to stay on top of this. Now, when people are first starting out on NPH and regular, there are actually some pre-mixed formulations of NPH and regular, and you will know that's what it is because the name of it will be a number. So the most common one is 70-30, and what the 70 stands for is 70% NPH, and the 30 is 30% regular. Now, if you read the textbooks, you will see that you require, of your total daily insulin requirements, roughly 70% you're going to take in the morning and 30% in the evening, of which 70% of that will be NPH and 30% regular. Now, our bodies don't read the textbooks, so it is rarely the case that that's going to get you under perfect control. So because of that, when you're using pre-mixed insulins, you're locked into that ratio. There's no way to adjust that. But it's actually a good way to get started on using NPH and regular insulin. And when you get comfortable with that, then you just get individual vials of NPH and regular and mix them yourself. But if you are using a pre-mixed formulation, what you have to understand is, again, as you have two peaks. You have the regular early, you have the NPH peak later in the day, and that's from the shot that you took in the morning. And then in the evening, again, you're going to have an early peak, and then you're going to have a later peak. So when you're making adjustments to that, our goal initially is going to be 140. And so you have to look at both peaks. So when you're making adjustments to your morning shot, what you have to look at is your blood sugar before lunch and before dinner. As soon as either one of those gets to your goal of 140, you're done. I don't care if the other one is still running 250. You can't continue to increase that dose of insulin. You may bring the high one down, but then you're going to start running low at the other point of the day. So always avoid low blood sugars. I always would rather you run high than risk running too low. So in addition to 70-30 insulin, there are also 50-50 formulations. There are 25-75 formulations. There may even be some others. So again, these are mixtures of NPH and regular. So it's very important that you learn to manage your blood sugars yourself. Do not count on your physician to do this for you. You have to understand what you're doing and why, and just pay attention, and you will do well. It's very important to get your blood sugar under as good a control as you can get it in. As I've been saying throughout these videos, for somebody who's just starting on these regimens, I make my goal about 140, and that's to avoid any significant hypoglycemic events. But as you get more comfortable with this, you can start tightening up your control. If I were doing this, I would probably make blood sugar goals for myself at around 120 or so. To be honest with you, a lot of endocrinologists would probably say that's too high, but don't want to run low. Absolutely don't want to run low. So just understand what you're doing and why, and just be very diligent and pay attention to what you're doing.